These are the 7 most common errors you're doing when mixing your songs. Yo, what is up guys, welcome to the video. My name is Wildcrow, and as you probably know, I do weekly live streams where I check your songs, I give you feedback, but also I have Patreon members where I give feedback a lot of times, super detailed feedback. So I realized that most of you are doing the same errors, and in this video I'm gonna tell you which ones and also how to solve them. Remember to leave a like and comment something so it's where you support me in this video, and also subscribe so you don't miss any tutorial, okay? Thank you. The first common error is filtering too much your breakdown kicks. Having a kick in the break is good because it keeps the rhythm, makes you move and all these kind of things. But in my opinion, you always need to filter them, because if you have the whole kick without any filter, then it feels too much as a drop, but it's not a drop, so it feels a bit weird. But you need to be careful how much you filter those kicks. If you just leave the low end, it's not good, because then when you listen to your song in a phone or in a small speaker, the people is not gonna listen to the kick. So you need to make sure you always leave some of the mid frequencies, so it's where you listen to this. And the best way to do it is to go to your master, put a low cut in 200 Hz and see if you can hear the kick, or just take your phone and listen to your song in your phone and let's see if you can hear the kick. If you can, that's good. If not, then don't filter that much. The second common error is having your leads in the build-up too loud. The build-up is the part where you mix the breakdown sound with the drop sound, so it's like a transition. So you want to add your melody using the leads in that part. That's good. My advice is that you filter them, so it's when you add them, it's like smoother, it's not that drastic, like boom, they're here. But you need to make sure that they are not too loud in the build-up. So my advice is that you mix your break and your build-up without listening to the drop. So if they are too loud, what you can do is just use a volume plugin like the Fruity Balance, reduce the volume there and enable this plugin only in this part. Then in the drop you can have the normal volume, because you mix the leads in the drop like with all the sounds of the drop. By the way, put this plugin at the end of the processing chain, okay, not before, because otherwise it's gonna be affected by everything. Just want your leads as they are, but quieter, so put the volume plugin at the end. The common problem number 3 is the sub bass is too low. Yes, of course, the sub bass needs to be low, but you cannot go too far. Sometimes in your bass progression you're going down and the lowest notes you basically cannot hear them. Then that's not good. Yeah, maybe if you have a subwoofer in the club you're gonna feel it, but you're not gonna hear it, especially not in your house or with headphones or your normal speakers. So if there's only 1 or 2 notes that are way too low, what you need to do is put them 1 octave higher. There's no problem if the bass progression is going down and then your sub bass in those notes is higher. There's no problem at all. What's important is that it sounds good. And if it's the entire sub bass, then what you need to do is put the entire sub bass 1 octave higher. Let's say this is your bass progression and it sounds like this. These ones are quite difficult to hear, so what you should do is just put this 1 octave higher, just like this. You hear it way more, but also you can check this using a frequency analyzer. If we check the first note, you can see that we have like a peak, then another peak, and then this one that is higher harmony. But if we check the lowest one, there's no like peaks, you know, it's like a ball here in the lows, but there's not a peak here. But if we put it 1 octave higher, then you have more frequencies here, but also you have this higher harmony. But the best thing is that you always use your ears. The error number 4 is too much sidechain in the breakdown. Let's say in your break you have a kick and you also have a bass, so what you do is put a sidechain. But here my advice is that you don't use plugins like the Kickstart, Volume Shaper or LFO2, because what you're gonna get with this is way too much sidechain, way too much pumping effect, and you don't want this in the breakdown. You want this in the drop to give that rhythm, that feeling. So what can you do? Do the sidechain but with an EQ. What I like to do is to go to sounds like the bass or the pads, the pianos that have low frequencies, put the parametric EQ2, take the first band and put it on 100, 120 Hz, and just using a P controller on the kick, take this and make it go down every time the kick hits. This is where you're sidechaining the lower frequencies that are the ones that need to be clean and that need to be sidechained, but you're not touching any of the other frequencies. So this way, your sub is gonna sound clean, but you don't have that pumping effect. The common error number 5 is nasal leads. By nasal leads, I mean something that sounds something like this, you know, that has way too much mid-highs and not enough highs. This happens to a lot of you. I don't know why. You're maybe cutting too much the highs, or you don't care about the mid-highs and you boost there. I don't know, but you need to focus on this. By mid-highs, I mean something between 1000 and maybe 10,000 Hz, something in between of this. If you check the leads now, it sounds like this. I can easily hear that here there's something that is not good. So what I do is just I boost it, I look what frequency is it, and then I reduce it. If I boost it, can you hear this kind of sound? So then here I just reduce. How much? Like this? Obviously not, this loses all the strength. And maybe a couple dBs, 3. And maybe sometimes you also need to boost a little bit here to give that kind of air or brightness to the leads. On this one, it's not really needed. The common problem number 6 that you are doing in your songs is skipping the break sounds like pianos or pads during the entire build-up until you reach the drop. Yes, as I said before, the build-up is the part where you mix the break sounds with the drop sounds, you know, they play together, and this way the transition is good. But what you need to do is to reduce the volume or filter the break sounds and increase the volume and unfilter the drop sounds. If you just keep your pianos and pads all the time without any change, what is happening is that these sounds are so warm and soft, and when you reach a drop, the sounds are completely different. So if you have this all the time without any change, when you reach a drop, you're gonna miss that sound and the contrast is gonna be so big. So it's good to add a filter on this kind of sounds. I don't care if it's a high cut or a low cut, and maybe reduce a little bit the volume or add a bit of reverb or these kind of things. So basically what they're doing is making they fade out. So this way, first you give more space to the drop sounds that are coming, but also you avoid this kind of big contrast that is not that good. So we have these pads and this piano. Let's say we have them like this. All of a sudden when we reach this part, it sounds super empty because this makes it sound so full. Or sometimes you have it like this. Let's see what happens. The contrast is way too big and also feels a bit empty because you don't have these sounds. So I decided to have these two things. This is just a volume automation going down and this a low cut going up. With these things they sound like this. And now you play this. As you can see, now this doesn't sound that empty because this is not that strong. And the last common error most of you are doing is not having enough warmth in your song. When I talk about warm sounds, I mean sounds that are strong, let's say between 100 and 3 or 400 Hz. When something is strong there, it feels warm. The problem most of you have is that in your leads you take and reduce a lot these frequencies and then the leads sound so weak and so thin. So you need to bring back those frequencies. Also your basses need to be strong in this part. I hear a lot of songs from you that you have a strong mid-high bass, but there's not enough mid-low bass. So your bass in the end sounds so weak. For example, let's check the leads. They don't sound strong, they don't sound warm. So we need to boost here a little bit. The difference is huge. Or let's check the bass line. Yeah, it has a good mid-high, but there's not enough mid-lows. In this case, what I did is to add 2 extra sounds that are lower, that are warmer, that have a bit more bass. But check now how it sounds. Has more strength here and sounds way warmer and fatter. So of course, now don't get crazy and start boosting a lot of those frequencies because it's not gonna sound good, it's gonna sound too boomy. But make sure you check these frequencies, make sure you don't cut too much, make sure you compare your song to others, checking in those frequencies. But this is not only in the drop, sometimes in the breakdowns you also need maybe a bass to cover these frequencies, or maybe a wrist bass or a piano, it needs to be strong in these frequencies. So always make sure you check this area because it's super important. So well guys, that's it. These are the 7 most common errors you are doing that I hear when I give you feedback on the live streams and I give feedback to my Patreon members. By the way, thank you so much to all these people that are my Patreon members that support me so much and I help them so much. If you want to be a Patreon member, down below in the description you have the link to all the information. Remember to leave a like, subscribe so you miss any tutorial, comment something, send this to your producer friends or to your mom or whatever. Thank you so much and see you in the next video.